At a company's party, I tried to kiss my wife on the dance floor. She pushed me away. Stop. You're embarrassing me. I don't want to look taken. I slid off my ring and said calmly, problem solved. When guests saw me place it on the table, her single status became the night's headline. So here I am, Marcus Ellery, standing in what's basically architectural purgatory, also known as the annual Halden and Rowe Company Gala. Picture this. A ballroom that screams, we spent way too much on chandeliers and not enough on employee bonuses, with crystal that probably cost more than my car and wine that flows like it's going out of style. The whole place is crawling with executives who think business casual means a Rolex instead of a Patek Philippe. I'm nursing my second whiskey. Okay, fine. It's my third, but who's counting? Watching my wife Clara work the room like she's campaigning for president. And honestly, she might as well be. Clara's been climbing the corporate ladder at this firm faster than a cat escaping a bathtub. And tonight, she's practically glowing with that. I'm about to get promoted, and you peasants can kiss my Louboutins energy. The thing about these corporate shindigs is that everyone's pretending to have a blast while secretly calculating how much FaceTime they're getting with the partners. It's like high school, except with better suits and worse backstabbing. I've been to enough of these dog and pony shows to know the drill. Smile, schmooze, and try not to say anything that'll get you fired before the open bar closes. Clara's wearing this emerald dress that cost more than most people's rent. I know because I paid for it. She looks absolutely stunning, which is why every guy in the room is pretending to be interested in her opinions on sustainable design while actually just staring at her like she's the last slice of pizza at a college party. Not that I blame them. My wife is gorgeous, successful, and smart as hell. Sometimes I wonder what she sees in a guy like me. Speaking of which, I decide it's time to remind everyone, including myself, that the knockout in the emerald dress actually belongs to me. So I down the rest of my whiskey, straighten my tie, and wade through the sea of polyester blend suits and fake laughs toward my wife. Care to dance? I ask, offering my hand like we're in some cheesy rom-com instead of corporate hell. Clara looks at me like I just suggested we streak through the lobby. Marcus, I'm in the middle of. Come on, I interrupt, already knowing she's going to make some excuse about networking or whatever. One dance. Remember when we used to do that? Before your calendar became more complicated than NASA's launch schedule. She glances around, probably calculating how this'll look to the higher-ups, then sighs like I've asked her to donate a kidney. Fine. One dance. We make our way to the dance floor, where a few other couples are swaying to some jazz number that's supposed to be classy, but mainly just sounds like elevator music with delusions of grandeur. I pull Clara close, and for a second, just a second, it feels like old times. Like when we were just two kids who met in college and thought love was enough to build a life on. That's when I lean in for a kiss. Nothing crazy, just a simple, hey, I love you kiss between husband and wife at a company party. Totally normal, right? Wrong. Clara shoves me back like I'm carrying the plague. Not just a gentle, not now, honey push, but a full-on, get the hell away from me shove that sends me stumbling backward and catches the attention of half the damn ballroom. Stop it, Marcus, she hisses, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing her? I'm her husband, for crying out loud. We've been married for 8 years, have a daughter together, share a mortgage and a life, but apparently showing affection at a company party is crossing some invisible line I didn't know existed. But then she drops the real bomb. I don't want to look taken. The words hit me like a freight train loaded with stupid. The room suddenly feels like it's tilting, like someone just shifted the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. The music keeps playing, people keep laughing and chatting, but all I can hear is that one sentence echoing in my head. I don't want to look taken. My wife, the mother of my child, the woman I've been sharing a bed with for nearly a decade, doesn't want to look taken. At her company party, where everyone knows she's married, where I'm standing right next to her wearing a wedding ring that matches hers. You know what? Fine. If Clara doesn't want to look taken, I can solve that problem real quick. I slip off my wedding ring. The white gold band we picked out together, the one that cost me 2 months' salary back when I was just starting out, and I set it down gently on the nearest table, right next to some overpriced centerpiece that probably has a Latin name I can't pronounce. Problem solved. I say, my voice surprisingly calm considering my entire world just shifted off its axis. The effect is immediate and spectacular. It's like someone just yelled fire in a crowded theater, except instead of running for the exits, everyone starts whispering and staring. I can practically feel the gossip spreading through the room like wildfire, jumping from group to group faster than a cat video goes viral. Clara's face goes white, then red, then some color that doesn't exist in nature. Her eyes dart around the room, taking in all the stares and whispers, probably calculating the damage to her precious reputation. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? Her image, her career, her precious standing in this corporate fishbowl where appearances matter more than actual human feelings. Within minutes, and I mean literally minutes, my little gesture becomes the entertainment for the evening. I can hear the whispers spreading. Did you see that? Marcus Ellery just took off his ring. Clara's single again. It's like watching a really pathetic game of telephone, except everyone's dressed in designer clothes and pretending to be sophisticated while they gossip like teenagers. That's when Jonas appears at my elbow like some kind of working-class guardian angel. Jonas Rivera, my oldest friend, and probably the only guy in this whole place who doesn't give a damn about quarterly reports or client portfolios. He's an electrician who thinks corporate politics are about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. And right now he's looking at me with the kind of expression you'd have if you just watched someone accidentally set their house on fire. Damn, Marcus, he mutters, keeping his voice low but not bothering to hide his amazement. You just lit the fuse. And you know what? He's absolutely right. I did light a fuse. The question is, what exactly is going to explode when it reaches the end? So there I am, standing like an idiot in the middle of this corporate circus, having just nuked my marriage in front of half of Minneapolis's architectural elite. You'd think Clara would at least have the decency to look embarrassed, maybe slink off to the bathroom to regroup or something. But nope. My dear wife stays right there in that emerald dress, the one that cost me a small fortune and apparently comes with a side of shamelessness. Instead of damage control, Clara does something that makes my jaw hit the floor harder than a poorly designed foundation. She starts laughing. Not nervous. Oh my God, what just happened? Laughter, but this loud, theatrical cackling that sounds like she's auditioning for a role in some twisted Broadway show called How to Destroy Your Husband's Soul in One Evening. And where does she migrate to while unleashing this banshee-level amusement? Right over to Adrian Keats, her business partner and the human embodiment of everything wrong with corporate America. Adrian's the kind of guy who probably irons his underwear and thinks Casual Friday means wearing a tie that only costs $300 instead of $5. He's got that whole, I call everyone pal, but I'm secretly plotting your demise vibe down to an art form. And his idea of dressing down is wearing an Armani suit instead of Tom Ford. I watch from across the room as Clara positions herself right next to this walking cologne advertisement. And suddenly her body language shifts into something I've never seen before. She's touching his arm while she talks, tilting her head like everything he says is absolutely fascinating, and generally acting like she's auditioning for the role of available woman at corporate event. The worst part? Adrian's eating it up like it's free cake at a company picnic. He's got his chest puffed out, his hand casually resting on the small of her back. And he's wearing this smug expression that makes me want to introduce his perfectly veneered teeth to my fist. Jonas, bless his blue-collar soul, sidles up next to me with 2 fresh drinks and an expression that suggests he's watching a train wreck in slow motion. You seeing this? He asks, not even trying to be subtle about staring at the Clara and Adrian show. She's acting like she's single already. I don't reply because honestly, what is there to say? My wife just went from "don't embarrass me" to "look how available I am" in the span of 10 minutes. It's like watching someone flip a switch, except the switch controls my entire life, and apparently Clara's been planning to throw it for a while now. The thing about these corporate events is that everyone pretends to be having deep, meaningful conversations about market trends and sustainable design, but really they're all just watching each other like it's reality TV. And right now, the Clara and Marcus divorce drama is apparently the main attraction. I can feel eyes on me from every corner of the room, people whispering behind their wine glasses, and probably taking bets on how long it'll take before I either punch someone or have a complete breakdown. That's when I notice her. Evelyn Mercer, Clara's mother and the human equivalent of a glacier, cold, imposing, and capable of sinking the Titanic just by existing. She's standing near the bar, wearing some black number that probably cost more than my car, and she's staring at me with the kind of look you'd give to something you found stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Evelyn has never liked me. From day one, she made it clear that her precious daughter could do better than some middle-class architect who didn't come from money or have the right connections. She tolerated me because Clara seemed happy, but now that the facade is crumbling, the knives aren't just coming out. They're being sharpened in plain sight. She doesn't even try to hide her disdain. While her daughter is practically grinding on Adrian Keats in front of God and everyone, Evelyn's shooting me death glares like this whole situation is somehow my fault. Like I'm the one who decided to turn a simple request for a dance into a declaration of independence. The irony isn't lost on me. Here I am, getting the stink eye from my mother-in-law while my wife flirts with another man at a company party, and somehow I'm the villain in this story. It's like being blamed for the Titanic sinking when you're the one pointing out the iceberg. Jonas follows my gaze and lets out a low whistle. Man, if looks could kill, you'd be 6 feet under and pushing up daisies. What's her problem anyway? She thinks I'm not good enough for Clara. I mutter, taking a long pull from my drink. Apparently she was right. Bullshit, Jonas says with the kind of loyalty that only comes from 20 years of friendship. Clara's the one acting like a crazy person. You asked your wife to dance, not to run away and join the circus. But as I watch Clara throw her head back and laugh at something Adrian's whispering in her ear, I realize that Jonas might be wrong about one thing. Clara isn't acting crazy, she's acting free. Like someone who just got out of prison and is celebrating their liberation. The crowd starts to thin as people migrate toward the quieter areas of the venue, probably looking for better acoustics for their gossip sessions. That's when I see Clara and Adrian making their move toward one of the side rooms. You know, those little alcoves that every fancy venue has for private conversations and other activities that definitely aren't appropriate for public consumption. Something in my gut tells me to follow them. Maybe it's instinct, maybe it's stupidity, but I find myself trailing behind at a distance, Jonas muttering something about this being a bad idea as he reluctantly follows. The side room they choose is one of those dimly lit spaces with expensive furniture and the kind of lighting that's supposed to be romantic, but mainly just makes everyone look like they're in a noir film. I position myself against the wall outside, close enough to hear, but far enough away to avoid being seen. And that's when I hear it. Adrian's voice, smooth as silk and twice as fake, promising Clara that my meltdown on the dance floor is actually going to work in their favor. He looks unstable, Adrian says, and I can practically hear the smile in his voice. With enough witnesses to tonight's little performance, the divorce is going to be a cakewalk. You'll keep the house, your shares in the firm, hell, probably even Sophie. My blood turns to ice. They're talking about my daughter. My 7-year-old daughter who still asks me to check for monsters under her bed and thinks I hung the moon. They're planning to take her away from me like she's just another asset to be divided up in their corporate takeover of my life. That's when it hits me. Clara and Adrian didn't just happen to be standing together tonight. This isn't some spontaneous rebound situation. They've been planning this. The way she pushed me away, the "I don't want to look taken" comment, even her reaction to me taking off my ring. It was all part of some sick script they'd already written. As I stand there listening to them plot my destruction, one thought keeps running through my head. They think I'm finished. They think they've won. But here's the thing about being an architect. You learn how to spot the fatal flaw in any design. And these two idiots just showed me theirs. Morning comes way too early, like it always does when your life imploded the night before. I'm lying in bed listening to Clara move around our bedroom like nothing happened, like she didn't just participate in the corporate equivalent of a public execution at last night's gala. The woman has balls of steel, I'll give her that. She's wearing these silk robes that cost more than most people spend on groceries, gliding around our master suite like she's auditioning for a luxury hotel commercial. The morning light streaming through our ridiculously expensive curtains catches the fabric just right, and for a split second, I remember why I fell for her in the first place. Then reality comes crashing back like a hangover, and I remember that this gorgeous woman was plotting my destruction while wearing that emerald dress last night. Clara's sipping espresso from her favorite Italian ceramic cup, Because God forbid she drink coffee from anything that didn't cost 50 bucks, and scrolling through her phone with the kind of casual indifference that would make a sociopath jealous. She's acting like absolutely nothing earth-shattering happened 12 hours ago. No acknowledgement of the ring currently sitting on some table at the Ritz-Carlton, no mention of her cozy chat with Adrian, nothing. I'm going to shower, she announces, like she's giving me a weather report. Don't wait breakfast for me. I've got an early meeting. Of course she does. Probably with her boy toy Adrian to plan their next move in Operation Destroy Marcus. But here's where Clara makes her first real mistake. She leaves her phone sitting on the bathroom counter while she heads into our walk-in shower that's bigger than most people's bedrooms. Now, I'm not proud of what I'm about to do, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and finding out your wife is plotting to steal your kid definitely qualifies as desperate times. So I pad over to the bathroom, my bare feet silent on the heated marble floors that Clara insisted we install, because apparently regular floors are for peasants. Her phone is just sitting there like a digital smoking gun, and I know her passcode because she never changed it. Sophie's birthday, 0312. Our daughter's special day, now being used to unlock the evidence of her mother's betrayal. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so damn tragic. The screen lights up, and I'm immediately hit with more notifications than a teenage influencer. But it's not the number of messages that catches my attention. It's who they're from and what they say. I start scrolling through her text messages, and holy shit, it's like reading the script for a soap opera written by someone with serious mommy issues. There are months of messages between Clara and Adrian that make me feel like I need a shower with industrial-strength soap. The earliest ones start innocently enough. Work stuff, project discussions, the kind of professional communication you'd expect between business partners. But somewhere around 3 months ago, things take a hard left turn into crazy town. Can't wait to see you tonight, from Adrian, followed by Clara's response, same. Marcus is working late again. Shocking, right? Faced with tears of joy. Working late. I was working late trying to land the Peterson account that would have secured our family's financial future, and my loving wife was using my dedication as an opportunity to play house with her business partner. The messages get progressively worse as I scroll. Hotel reservations, inside jokes about my supposed shortcomings, and enough emoji usage to make a 12-year-old cringe. But the really damaging stuff comes when they start talking strategy. He's so clueless, Clara wrote just 2 weeks ago. Still thinks we're the perfect family. This is going to be easier than we thought. Adrian's response makes my blood boil. The man's a walking midlife crisis. When this is over, you'll have everything and he'll have nothing. Just like he deserves. Just like I deserve? For what? Working my ass off to provide for our family? Being faithful to my wife? Actually giving a damn about our marriage? But wait, it gets better. Because apparently Clara's been living a double life that would make the CIA jealous. She's got a secret Instagram account under the name C.Mercer, using her maiden name like she's already divorced, and the photos on this thing are like finding out your wife is actually a completely different person. There are pictures of Clara in outfits I've never seen, at restaurants I've never been to, in hotel rooms I definitely didn't pay for. She's posing like she's single and loving it, and Adrian's all over the comments section like a horny teenager. Looking gorgeous, as always, baby. He comments on a photo of her in some black dress that probably costs more than my car payment. Soon we won't have to hide, Clara responds. Soon this will all be real. Real? What the hell does that mean? Our marriage isn't real? Our daughter isn't real? The house we bought together, the life we built, the 8 years we've been together. None of that's real? Then I find the group chat that really makes me want to punch a wall. It's Clara with her office friends Lydia and Tessa, 2 women who make hyenas look dignified. These are the kind of people who think support means encouraging your worst impulses and friendship means enabling your bad decisions. Go girl, you deserve so much better. Lydia writes after Clara shares some story about me apparently being emotionally unavailable. Adrian sounds amazing. When do we get to meet him officially? Tessa chimes in with enough heart-eye emojis to power a small city. They're talking about my wife's affair like it's some kind of liberation movement. Like she's Rosa Parks instead of a cheating spouse. The level of delusion is staggering. But here's where I prove that I'm not as stupid as they think I am. I start screenshotting everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that shows this wasn't some spontaneous attraction, This was a calculated plan to destroy my life and steal my daughter. I create a new email account on my phone, send everything to myself, then forward it to 2 more backup accounts because I've watched enough legal dramas to know that evidence has a way of disappearing when rich people are involved. By the time Clara emerges from the shower wrapped in a towel that probably costs more than most people's rent, I'm sitting at the kitchen island reading the newspaper like I'm running for Father of the Year. She comes downstairs in one of her power suits, the navy blue one that makes her look like she could foreclose on your house and feel good about it, and plants a kiss on my forehead like we're still the happy couple from last year's Christmas card. "Don't be paranoid, Marcus," she says, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Maybe you should talk to someone. Last night was concerning." "Concerning? Lady, you haven't seen concerning yet." She grabs her purse, checks her reflection in the hallway mirror one more time, and heads out to whatever lie she's planning to tell today. The door closes behind her with a soft click, and I'm alone with the smoking ruins of my marriage and enough evidence to bury her deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. That's when I call Jonas. Because if you're going to war, you need someone watching your back, and Jonas Rivera is the kind of guy who'd help you hide a body and never ask questions. Burger joint on Lindale. I tell him when he picks up. We need to talk. An hour later, we're sitting in a dive bar that serves burgers the size of hubcaps and doesn't ask questions about why 2 grown men look like they're planning a heist. Jonas listens to everything, occasionally shaking his head or muttering Spanish curse words that probably aren't appropriate for mixed company. "So what's the play?" he asks when I finish laying out the evidence. That's when my phone buzzes with a text from a number I don't recognize. "Want to see the truth? Lark Hotel, penthouse, midnight." Well, shit. Looks like this rabbit hole goes deeper than I thought. So here I am at 11:30 p.m., standing outside the Lark Hotel with Jonas, both of us looking like we're about to rob the place instead of conduct some weird midnight surveillance mission. The Lark is one of those boutique hotels that charges $500 a night for the privilege of sleeping in a room the size of most people's closets. But hey, at least the thread count is astronomical. Jonas is wearing his electrician's uniform because apparently that's his go-to disguise for questionable activities. "This is either the stupidest thing we've ever done or the smartest," he mutters, checking his tool belt like he's actually here to fix something instead of help me catch my wife in the act. Me? I'm dressed in dark jeans and a black hoodie, carrying my rage like it's architectural blueprints for revenge. The anonymous text keeps playing in my head. "Want to see the truth? Lark Hotel, penthouse, midnight." Either someone's trying to help me, or I'm about to walk into the world's most elaborate trap. At this point, I'm past caring which one it is. The service entrance is surprisingly easy to access. Apparently, hotels that cater to rich people assume their clientele is too refined to break and enter. Jonas sweet-talks the security guard with some story about emergency electrical work, flashing his credentials and throwing around enough technical jargon to make the guy's eyes glaze over. 5 minutes later, we're in. The service elevator is the kind of cramped metal box that makes you appreciate the fancy guest elevators, but it gets us where we need to go without running into any trust fund babies or their sugar daddies. 20 floors up, and my ears are popping like I'm on an airplane headed straight to hell. We find a maintenance balcony that gives us a perfect view into the penthouse through floor-to-ceiling windows that probably cost more than my annual salary. The place is exactly what you'd expect from a hotel suite that rents for more per night than most people make in a month. All sleek furniture, modern art, and the kind of lighting that makes everyone look like they're in a perfume commercial. And there they are, Clara and Adrian, sitting on a couch that probably has its own Instagram account, looking like they're auditioning for a really twisted version of Lifestyles of the Rich and Shameless. Clara's wearing the black dress, the one I bought her for our anniversary last year, thinking it would be perfect for a romantic dinner. Now she's wearing it for her boyfriend, like it's some kind of costume in their little play about destroying my life. The irony would be poetic if it wasn't so damn infuriating. Adrian's got his hand on her thigh like he owns her, and they're both laughing about something that's probably hilarious when you're plotting someone's downfall. He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than my mortgage payment, because apparently being a home-wrecking piece of garbage requires designer threads. I pull out my phone and start recording, my hands steadier than they have any right to be considering I'm basically watching my marriage get buried in real time. The video quality isn't great through the glass, but but it's clear enough to see Clara leaning into Adrian like he's her personal savior instead of the guy who's helping her destroy her family. They're talking about something that's making Clara animated in a way I haven't seen in months. She's gesturing with her hands, smiling like she just won the lottery, and generally acting like someone who's celebrating instead of someone who's committing adultery. The disconnect between this version of Clara and the cold, distant woman I've been living with is staggering. That's when Adrian pulls out what looks like a tablet and starts showing her something on the screen. From this distance, I can't see what it is, but whatever it shows makes Clara clap her hands together like a 5-year-old who just got promised ice cream. The sight makes my stomach turn because I just know, they're looking at something related to their grand plan to screw me over. Jonas, who's been remarkably quiet during this whole surveillance operation, leans closer to the window and whispers, "Is that what I think it is?" I look closer and realize what he's seeing. There are papers spread out on the coffee table in front of them, and while I can't read the details, the layout looks suspiciously like legal documents. Divorce papers, maybe? Custody agreements? Financial statements? Whatever it is, they're studying it like generals planning a military campaign. That's when the universe decides to remind me that karma has a twisted sense of humor. Alarms start blaring throughout the building. Not fire alarms, but security alarms that sound like they could wake the dead in 3 counties. Apparently, someone noticed that 2 guys in work clothes were hanging around places they shouldn't be at midnight. "Time to go," Jonas shouts over the noise, and we sprint toward the stairwell like our lives depend on it. 20 floors down in about 5 minutes, our lungs burning and our legs feeling like jelly. By the time we reach the parking garage, I'm pretty sure I've aged at least 5 years and Jonas is muttering prayers in Spanish. But before we make our escape, I spot Adrian's silver Maserati gleaming under the fluorescent lights like a monument to douchebaggery. It's parked in a spot marked, reserved for penthouse guests, because of course it is. The car probably costs more than most people's houses, and seeing it sitting there like some kind of trophy for successful adultery makes something snap inside me. I walk over to that pristine paint job and drag my house key along the side, leaving a scratch that's going to cost him more to fix than I make in a month. It's petty, it's reckless, and it's probably illegal, but damn if it doesn't feel good. While I'm at it, I grab a handful of mints from the hotel lobby and stuff them into his gas tank flap, because why not? If you're going to commit minor vandalism, might as well be thorough about it. Jonas is shaking his head at my antics, but he's not stopping me. "Feel better?" he asks as we finally head for his truck. "Not even close," I reply, but at least I've done something instead of just standing there like an idiot while my life gets demolished. The drive home is quiet except for the sound of my phone uploading everything to a secure cloud account I set up earlier. Videos, photos, screenshots, everything I need to prove that this wasn't some spontaneous affair, but a calculated attack on my family. But I'm not done yet. Not even close. Because if Clara and Adrian want to play games, I'm going to show them what happens when you underestimate someone who's got nothing left to lose. That night, I send one more email, this one to Charlotte Keats, Adrian's wife. Subject line, "About your husband." Attachment, everything I just recorded, plus a few choice screenshots from Clara's secret Instagram account. If they want to destroy families, they can start with their own. You know what they say about payback being a bitch? Well, let me tell you, she showed up to work faster than a pizza delivery guy on commission. The fallout from my little midnight surveillance mission hits like a Category 5 hurricane made of pure vindictive energy. Clara comes home the next evening acting like she's auditioning for a role in Gaslight, the musical. She's got this whole wounded victim act down to an art form, complete with trembling voice and strategically placed tears that would make a soap opera actress jealous. "Marcus, we need to talk," she says, settling onto our ridiculously expensive Italian leather sofa like she's delivering a eulogy. "Your behavior lately, it's concerning. Following me around, acting paranoid, making wild accusations. I think you might be having some kind of breakdown." "A breakdown?" "Lady, if I was having a breakdown, you'd know it because your precious penthouse rendezvous would have ended with a lot more than just scratched paint and mint-flavored gasoline. But the real cherry on top of this gaslighting Sunday comes courtesy of my dear mother-in-law, Evelyn Mercer. She calls me directly, not Clara, me, to share her thoughts on my recent concerning behavior. Because apparently being upset about your wife's affair is a character flaw in the Mercer family handbook. Marcus, she says in that tone that could freeze hell over. Clara tells me you've been acting unstable. Perhaps you should consider that the problem isn't with everyone else. It's with you. You're a failed man who can't accept that his wife has outgrown him. A failed man. That's rich coming from someone whose idea of a successful marriage was bleeding her late husband dry and spending his money on charity galas where she could show off her latest plastic surgery to other rich widows. Meanwhile, Adrian's strutting around the office like he just won the lottery and discovered the cure for baldness on the same day. He's got this smug expression permanently glued to his face, and every time he sees me, he makes sure to flash that $1,000 smile like he's marking his territory. "Hey there, pal," he says during one particularly nauseating encounter by the coffee machine. "How are you holding up? Clara mentioned you've been going through a rough patch." A rough patch? Like discovering your wife's affair is the emotional equivalent of a pothole instead of a sinkhole that swallows your entire life. But here's the thing about being pushed around by people who think they're smarter than you. Eventually, you reach a point where being the nice guy isn't an option anymore. And for me, that point comes at the Halden and Rowe Charity Gala, 3 weeks after the Penthouse incident. The Charity Gala is supposed to be this dignified affair where Minneapolis's architectural elite pretend to care about underprivileged kids while drinking wine that costs more per bottle than most people spend on groceries in a month. It's held at the convention center's ballroom, complete with crystal chandeliers, overpriced flower arrangements, and enough fake sincerity to power a small city. Clara shows up looking like $1,000,000 in some designer number that probably cost more than my car, working the room like she's campaigning for sainthood. Adrian's there too, naturally, playing the role of supportive business partner while secretly planning to redecorate my house with his ugly furniture. The evening drags on with the usual speeches about community outreach and sustainable design, punctuated by the kind of polite applause that sounds like rain on a tin roof. Everyone's drinking, networking, and pretending that writing a check to charity somehow absolves them of being generally terrible human beings. That's when I make my move. Earlier that day, I'd slipped the AV technician, a kid named Danny who moonlights as a DJ and has student loans bigger than my mortgage, a crisp $100 bill. All I needed was 5 minutes at the microphone and access to the projection screen. Danny, bless his financially desperate soul, was more than happy to help out a fellow working man. I wait until the main presentation ends and people are settling in for what they think will be a boring slideshow about the firm's community involvement. Instead, they're about to get the Marcus and Clara show, live and uncut. I walk up to the stage like I belong there, which technically I do since I'm a senior architect at the firm. Danny gives me a subtle nod from the booth, and suddenly I'm holding a microphone in front of 300 of Minneapolis's most influential people. "Ladies and gentlemen," I begin, my voice carrying across the ballroom with crystal clarity. "Thank you for coming out tonight to support such a worthy cause. Before we continue with the evening's festivities, I'd like to share something special with you." I can see Clara in the crowd, her face going from confused to horrified in about 2 seconds flat. Adrian looks like someone just told him his trust fund evaporated. "Allow me to introduce tonight's real entertainment." I continue, my wife Clara and her business partner Adrian. They've been working on a very special project together, one that really showcases their collaborative spirit. The screen behind me lights up like the 4th of July, except instead of fireworks, it's showing hotel photos, text message screenshots, and highlights from Clara's secret Instagram account. The greatest hits of their affair, presented in high-definition glory for everyone to see. The ballroom goes dead silent except for the sound of 300 people simultaneously gasping and reaching for their phones. You could hear a pin drop if pins made the same sound as social media careers imploding. Clara tries to run for the exit, but the crowd's packed tighter than a rush-hour subway car. Adrian, meanwhile, decides that the best response to public humiliation is violence, because apparently his Ivy League education didn't cover conflict resolution. He charges toward the stage like a bull seeing red, except bulls are generally more graceful and less likely to trip over their own feet. I step aside at the last second, and Adrian goes stumbling past me like he's auditioning for a role in a slapstick comedy. That's when years of suppressed rage and sleepless nights decide to make an appearance. I catch Adrian with a right hook that is every ounce of frustration I've felt since this nightmare started. The punch connects with a satisfying crack that probably costs him more in dental work than I make in 6 months. Adrian goes down like a sack of overpriced potatoes, and the crowd erupts like we just scored the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. Phones are recording from every angle. People are cheering, and somewhere in the chaos, I can hear Evelyn Mercer shrieking like a banshee whose favorite soap opera just got canceled. The security guards show up eventually, but by then the damage is done. The video is already going viral faster than a cat meme, and Clara's reputation is deader than disco. Adrian's lying on the floor holding his jaw and probably reconsidering his life choices, and I'm standing over both of them feeling better than I have in months. Minneapolis's elite just got a front row seat to the Marcus Ellery Revenge Tour, and judging by the standing ovation, they definitely got their money's worth. Monday morning rolls around like a freight train loaded with legal documents and bad news. Apparently, when you publicly humiliate your wife and punch her boyfriend at a charity gala, there are consequences. Who knew? I'm sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee that tastes like it was filtered through my own despair, when the first wave of retaliation hits. My phone starts buzzing like an angry hornet, and every notification brings worse news than the last. First up, my business accounts are frozen. Not temporarily inconvenienced, not delayed pending review. Completely frozen solid like they've been dunked in liquid nitrogen. Apparently, Clara and her legal team worked through the weekend to convince a judge that I'm some kind of financial threat. Because nothing says dangerous with money like exposing your wife's affair at a charity event. Then comes the really fun part. My firm's credit lines get strangled faster than a mob informant. Suppliers who've been happy to work with us for years suddenly need payment up front. The bank that approved our expansion loan last month is now reviewing our account for irregularities. It's like watching dominoes fall, except each domino represents years of hard work going down the drain. Jonas shows up around 10 with donuts and the kind of grim expression usually reserved for funeral directors. "How bad is it?" he asks, settling into my kitchen like he's preparing for a siege. "Well," I say, scrolling through the latest batch of legal threats on my phone. "I can't access my business accounts, my credit's been torched, and apparently I'm now considered a flight risk." So, just another manic Monday. That's when the doorbell rings, and I'm greeted by a process server who looks like he's been doing this job since the Carter administration. He hands me a restraining order with the kind of professional sympathy that suggests he's seen this movie before and knows how it ends. The restraining order is a masterpiece of legal fiction. According to Clara's attorneys, who apparently bill more per hour than most people make in a week, I'm a clear and present danger to her safety. The evidence? My increasingly erratic behavior, including but not limited to public outbursts, stalking, and unprovoked violence. Unprovoked violence. Right. Because catching your wife cheating and responding with anything other than a polite thank you note is apparently grounds for a restraining order in Minneapolis. But the real kicker comes later that afternoon. I'm in my office, trying to figure out how to keep my business afloat when everyone in the financial world has apparently decided I'm toxic waste. When my secretary Renee buzzes me with a call that makes my blood run cold. "Mr. Ellery? There's someone from Child Protective Services online too. They say it's urgent." Child Protective Services. Those 3 words hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut, because I know exactly what this is about. Clara's not just trying to destroy my business and my reputation. She's going after Sophie, the CPS worker, a woman named Janet Morrison who sounds like she's been doing this job long enough to have lost all faith in humanity, explains that they received an anonymous tip about my fitness as a parent. Apparently, someone reported that I've been displaying violent and unstable behavior around my 7-year-old daughter. "We take these reports very seriously, Mr. Ellery," she says in the tone of someone who's delivered this speech 1,000 times. "We'll need to schedule a home visit and interview Sophie to ensure her safety." An anonymous tip. Because anonymous tips are definitely how concerned citizens usually report child welfare issues, and not at all how vindictive ex-wives try to weaponize the system against their soon-to-be ex-husbands. The home visit happens 2 days later, and it's exactly as invasive and humiliating as you'd expect. Officer Ramirez, a guy who looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, Spends 2 hours going through my house like he's searching for evidence of war crimes instead of checking on a kid whose biggest problem is that her parents are getting divorced. Sophie, bless her heart, handles the whole thing better than I do. When Officer Ramirez asks her if she feels safe at home, she looks at him like he's asked if the sky is purple. Of course I feel safe, she says with the kind of matter-of-fact confidence that only 7-year-olds can muster. Dad makes the best pancakes, and he always checks for monsters under my bed. Mommy's been acting weird lately, but Dad takes care of me. When he asks about my behavior, Sophie gives him a look that could melt steel. Dad's sad because Mommy's been mean to him, but he's still nice to me. He's the only one who listens when I talk about school. 2 hours of questions, and Sophie basically gives me a character reference that would make a saint jealous. Officer Ramirez leaves looking like he feels sorry for having to put us through this circus, and I'm left wondering how many more ways Clara can find to torture me before this is over. That evening, Clara comes home for the first time since the charity gala debacle. She's wearing crocodile tears that are about as convincing as a $3 bill, along with an outfit that probably cost more than most people's rent. "Marcus, we need to talk," she says, settling onto our couch like she's visiting a sick relative. "I think we should try counseling. Your behavior has been concerning." Concerning. There's that word again. Apparently, it's Clara's favorite adjective for describing her husband's reaction to being betrayed, humiliated, and financially sabotaged. "You're paranoid," she continues, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue that probably costs more per square inch than gold. "These wild accusations about Adrian and me, it's not healthy. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about Sophie being around this kind of instability. The sheer audacity of this woman is breathtaking. She's sitting in the house I pay for, wearing clothes I bought, talking about my instability while she's been screwing her business partner and plotting to steal my daughter." That's when I decide to cut through the bullshit. "Clara," I say, my voice calm enough to surprise both of us. "Do you remember our wedding vows? The part about forsaking all others." She stops crying immediately, like someone just flipped a switch. The mask slips for just a second, and I get a glimpse of the real Clara, the cold, calculating woman who's been planning my destruction for months. "I'll make your life hell," she says, her voice dropping to a whisper that's more terrifying than any scream. I look at my wife, this stranger wearing Clara's face, and I can't help but smile. "Too late," I tell her. "You already did." But here's the thing Clara doesn't understand. When you've got nothing left to lose, you become dangerous in ways that money and lawyers can't fix. And I'm just getting started. 3 weeks into what I'm now calling the scorched earth phase of my divorce, I'm sitting in my office trying to figure out how to keep my business alive when there's a knock on my door. I'm expecting another process server, maybe a debt collector, or possibly the Grim Reaper himself at this point. Instead, I get Charlotte Keats. Charlotte is Adrian's wife, and she's nothing like what I expected. Where Adrian is all flash and fake charm, Charlotte is the kind of woman who could run a Fortune 500 company before lunch and still have time to destroy her enemies before dinner. She's wearing a sharp business suit that probably costs more than my car, but unlike the peacocks at Halden and Rowe, she wears it like armor instead of a costume. "Mr. Ellery," she says, walking into my office like she owns the place. "We need to talk." She settles into the chair across from my desk with the kind of controlled grace that suggests she's used to being the smartest person in the room. Her eyes are ice blue and calculating, and when she looks at me, I get the distinct impression that she's running some kind of mental calculus that would make a NASA computer jealous. "I received your email," she continues, her voice carrying the kind of authority that makes CEOs nervous. "Very thorough documentation. Very illuminating." I lean back in my chair, trying to read her expression. Is she here to thank me? Sue me? Have me killed? With rich people, you never really know which direction the conversation is going to go. "I thought you should know what your husband was up to," I say, figuring honesty is probably my best bet at this point. Charlotte lets out a laugh that sounds like broken glass hitting marble. "Oh, Mr. Ellery, I've known what Adrian was up to for months. The question is, do you know what he's really planning?" That gets my attention faster than a fire alarm. "What do you mean?" She opens her designer purse, the kind that probably costs more than most people's monthly salary, and pulls out a tablet. The screen shows bank statements, transaction records, and a bunch of financial documents that make my head spin just looking at them. "They're running," she says simply. offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, new identities, fake passports, the whole 9 yards. Adrian's been siphoning money from his clients for over a year, and your dear wife has been helping him cover his tracks. My blood turns to ice. How much money are we talking about? Close to $3 million, Charlotte says, like she's discussing the weather instead of grand larceny. And here's the really fun part. They're planning to take Sophie with them. The room tilts like someone just shifted the foundation of reality. They want to kidnap my daughter. Not just take her in a custody battle, but actually kidnap her and disappear to some tropical paradise where extradition laws are more like suggestions. When I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Tonight, Charlotte replies. Adrian's been moving money all week, and Clara withdrew Sophie from school this afternoon. Told them it was a family emergency. I'm on my feet before Charlotte finishes talking, my mind racing through the implications. Clara picked up Sophie early, which means she's already got our daughter somewhere, probably telling her some story about a surprise vacation or a fun adventure with Mommy and Uncle Adrian. Why are you telling me this? I ask, because in my experience, when rich people help you out, there's usually a catch that involves your soul and your firstborn child. Charlotte's smile could cut diamonds. Because Adrian thinks he's smarter than everyone else, including me. He's been planning to leave me high and dry while he rides off into the sunset with your wife and my money. I don't like being played for a fool. Fair enough. Hell hath no fury like a billionaire's wife scorned. What do you want from me? I ask. Help me stop them, she says. I've got a private investigator tracking their movements, but I need someone who knows Clara's patterns. Someone who can get close enough to make sure they don't get away with this. Charlotte's private investigator turns out to be a guy named Hank Doyle, who looks like he stepped out of a noir film and into my nightmare. He's got the kind of weathered face that suggests he's seen every kind of human depravity imaginable and lived to tell about it. They're at a storage unit near the airport. Hank reports when we meet up at a diner that serves coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Industrial complex off Highway 5. They've been loading boxes into a van for the past hour. My heart is pounding like a jackhammer as we drive through the night toward the storage facility. Charlotte rides shotgun, cool as ice, while I'm trying not to throw up from the combination of fear and rage coursing through my system. The storage complex is one of those sprawling industrial parks that look like they were designed by someone who hates both architecture and humanity. Rows of identical units stretch out under fluorescent lights that cast everything in a sickly yellow glow. We find them at Unit 47B. Adrian's loading boxes into a white van, while Clara holds Sophie by the shoulder. My daughter looks confused and scared, probably wondering why Mommy's making her leave in the middle of the night without saying goodbye to Daddy. When Sophie sees me, her face lights up like Christmas morning. Daddy, she calls out, trying to run toward me, but Clara tightens her grip. That's when Adrian decides to escalate the situation by pulling out a gun. Because apparently grand larceny and kidnapping weren't enough felonies for one evening. Walk away, Marcus, he says, his voice shaking almost as much as his hands. 2 hours head start. That's all we need. She comes with us. The gun looks huge in his manicured hands, and I can tell he's never held one before in his life. Adrian's the kind of guy who probably thinks rough means staying at a 4-star hotel instead of 5-star. But here's the thing about desperate people with weapons. They're unpredictable, even when they're incompetent. So I do something that Adrian's probably not expecting from a failed architect having a breakdown. I grab a handful of newspapers from a nearby trash bin and light them with my cigarette lighter, tossing the flaming bundle into the storage unit behind him. The smoke detector starts screaming like a banshee, and suddenly the whole complex is lighting up with alarms. Adrian spins around, confused by the noise and smoke, and that's when I make my move. I tackle him like I'm back in college playing intramural football, except this time the stakes are my daughter's life instead of beer money. The gun goes flying across the concrete, clattering into the darkness, and Adrian goes down harder than the stock market in 1929. Sophie breaks free from Clara's grip and runs straight into Charlotte's arms, while my soon-to-be ex-wife just stands there looking like her whole world just imploded. Which, to be fair, it probably did. Sirens are wailing in the distance, getting closer by the second, and Clara's looking at me with something that might actually be genuine regret for the first time in months. I'm sorry, she whispers, her voice barely audible over the alarms. I look at this woman who was supposed to be my partner in life, who instead became my partner in mutual destruction, and I feel something that might actually be pity. No, I tell her, pulling Sophie close. You're sorry you got caught. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a courtroom that smells like old wood and broken dreams, watching the final act of the Clara and Adrian show play out in front of a jury that looks like they'd rather be literally anywhere else on the planet. The Hennepin County Courthouse has seen its share of drama over the years, but I'm pretty sure the case of the state of Minnesota versus Clara Ellery and Adrian Keats is going to make the highlight reel. The evidence table looks like someone exploded a filing cabinet filled with every bad decision two people could possibly make. There are bankers' boxes full of financial records, printed screenshots from Clara's secret Instagram account, hotel receipts that tell a story no marriage should ever have to read, and enough photographic evidence to make a private investigator weep with joy. District Attorney Sarah Chun has been building this case like she's constructing a cathedral. Every piece of evidence carefully placed, every argument crafted with the kind of precision that would make an architect jealous. She's been prosecuting white-collar crime for 15 years, and watching her work is like watching Michelangelo paint the Sistine Chapel, except instead of religious imagery, she's creating a masterpiece of legal destruction. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, D.A. Chun begins her closing argument. What we have here is not a crime of passion, but a carefully orchestrated conspiracy that spanned over 18 months. The defendants didn't just betray their spouses, they betrayed their clients, their colleagues, and the basic trust that holds our financial system together. She gestures toward the evidence table like she's presenting the crown jewels. Mr. Keats systematically embezzled over $3 million from client accounts, using his position as a partner at Halden and Rhoda Access funds that were supposed to be building people's dream homes. Ms. Ellery, using her insider knowledge of the firm's financial systems, helped him cover his tracks by falsifying documents and authorizing transfers. Adrian's sitting at the defendant's table looking like someone who just discovered that his trust fund has been converted to monopoly money. His expensive suit can't hide the fact that he's sweating through his shirt, and his lawyer, some hotshot from downtown, who probably charges more per hour than most people make in a month, keeps whispering frantically in his ear like he's trying to perform legal CPR on a dead case. Clara's lawyer went with the tragic victim of manipulation defense, which is about as convincing as a $3 bill. According to her legal team, Clara was just an innocent woman who got swept up in Adrian's schemes because she was emotionally vulnerable and seeking escape from her deteriorating marriage. They're painting her as some kind of modern-day Ophelia, driven to crime by love and desperation. The jury's not buying it. You can tell because they keep looking at Clara like she's something they found stuck to the bottom of their shoe. When her lawyer tried to argue that she was just following Adrian's lead, one of the jurors, a middle-aged woman who looks like she's raised 5 kids and buried 2 husbands, actually rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out of her head. Hank Doyle, Charlotte's private investigator, takes the stand like he's been doing this dance for 30 years, which he probably has. His testimony reads like a crime novel, complete with surveillance photos, recorded conversations, and a paper trail that leads straight to the Cayman Islands. The defendants established multiple offshore accounts using shell companies, Hank explains, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Mr. Keats would transfer client funds to these accounts, and Ms. Ellery would alter the firm's records to make it appear as though the money had been used for legitimate project expenses. The prosecution plays recordings of Clara and Adrian discussing their escape plan, and hearing my wife's voice plotting to disappear with my daughter makes my stomach turn all over again. She sounds excited, like she's planning a vacation instead of multiple felonies. Once we're in the Caymans, there's no extradition. Clara's voice fills the courtroom through the sound system. Sophie will love the beaches, and by the time anyone figures out what happened, we'll be untouchable. When they play the recording of Adrian saying, "Marcus is too stupid to figure it out until it's too late," I have to resist the urge to stand up and remind everyone that this stupid guy is the reason they're sitting in handcuffs instead of sipping piña coladas on a beach. My own testimony is surprisingly cathartic. After months of being called paranoid, unstable, and vindictive, I finally get to tell my side of the story to 12 people who are actually required to listen. I walk them through the company gala, the discovery of Clara's affair, the midnight surveillance mission, and the night at the storage facility when they tried to kidnap Sophie. Clara's lawyer tries to paint me as an obsessed ex-husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. But it's hard to make that argument stick when there's video evidence of her planning to steal millions of dollars and flee the country with a 7-year-old. The defense's case falls apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Adrian's lawyer tries to argue that his client was just moving money to diversify their investment portfolio, which is legal speak for, "We've got nothing, and we're hoping the jury is stupid." Clara's team goes with temporary insanity, claiming she was so distraught over our failing marriage that she couldn't think clearly. The jury deliberates for exactly 4 hours and 23 minutes. I know because I'm sitting in the hallway watching the clock like it holds the secrets of the universe. Charlotte's next to me, cool as always, scrolling through her phone like she's checking the weather instead of waiting to hear if her husband is going to prison. When they come back, the foreman, a guy who looks like he's spent his entire life building things with his hands instead of tearing them down with legal documents, stands up and delivers the verdict with the kind of finality that makes courtroom dramas look like amateur hour. We find the defendant Adrian Keats guilty on all charges: embezzlement, fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping. Adrian goes pale enough to blend in with the courthouse walls. We find the defendant Clara Ellery guilty as an accessory to embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy, and guilty of child endangerment. Clara's face crumbles like a demolished building, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, she looks like an actual human being instead of a calculating machine wearing designer clothes. The judge, a woman named Patricia Hammond who looks like she's been dealing with white-collar criminals since the Coolidge administration, delivers the sentences with the kind of authority that makes everyone in the room sit up straighter. "Mr. Keats, you are sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, with restitution of $3.2 million to the victims of your crimes." 8 years. Adrian's going to be middle-aged when he gets out, assuming he survives prison food and roommates who probably don't appreciate Armani suits. "Ms. Ellery, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with your real estate license permanently revoked and full restitution to the affected parties." 5 years. Sophie will be 12 when her mother gets out, old enough to understand exactly what happened and why Daddy was right to be paranoid. From the gallery, I hear Evelyn Mercer hiss like a snake who just discovered someone's been standing on her tail. "This is your fault." She spits at me, her voice carrying across the courtroom like a curse. "You destroyed this family. You're a traitor." Judge Hammond's gavel comes down like the hammer of God, and just like that, it's over. Adrian gets led away in handcuffs, probably wondering how his life went from penthouse parties to prison jumpsuits. Clara looks back at me one last time before the bailiff takes her away, and I see something in her eyes that might actually be regret. Outside the courthouse, snow is falling like ash from a burned-down world, and I'm holding Sophie's hand as we walk toward whatever comes next. Moving day arrives like a long-awaited parole from the prison that was my old life. The house Clara and I shared, that monument to marital delusion with its heated marble floors and pretentious chandeliers, gets sold to pay for legal fees and restitution. Honestly, watching someone else load their furniture into that place feels like watching a tumor get removed. Good riddance to all of it. Our new place is a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a neighborhood where people actually know their neighbors' names and kids can ride bikes without requiring a security detail. It's about a quarter the size of the old house, which means Sophie and I actually bump into each other during the day instead of wandering around like ghosts in a mansion. Jonas shows up bright and early with his pickup truck and enough coffee to caffeinate a small army. "Moving day, amigo," he announces, like we're about to embark on some grand adventure instead of hauling boxes from point A to point B. Time to start fresh. The man's got a point. Everything we're moving represents the stuff that actually mattered: Sophie's toys, my drafting table, photo albums from before Clara turned into a financial criminal, and about 6 boxes of books that I somehow accumulated over the years. All the expensive crap that Clara insisted we needed to maintain our image stays with the house. The Italian leather furniture, the crystal stemware that cost more than most people's cars, the artwork that looked like someone sneezed on a canvas and called it genius. Let the new owners deal with that pretentious nonsense. Sophie's handling the move better than I expected. She's 8 now, which means she's old enough to understand that mommy made some very bad choices, but young enough to bounce back like kids do. She's running around the new house claiming bedrooms and making plans for where her stuffed animals are going to live. Dad, can I paint my room purple? She asks, bouncing on the balls of her feet like she's powered by pure excitement. With glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling? Absolutely, I tell her, and the smile that spreads across her face could power the entire neighborhood. When's the last time someone in our family was this excited about anything? Probably before Clara started treating our home like a staging area for her corporate climbing expedition. My assistant Renee deserves a medal for keeping my business alive while I was busy fighting World War III in family court. She's the kind of person who could probably run NASA if they gave her the chance. And somehow she managed to keep our clients happy while I was distracted by little things like embezzlement charges and custody battles. The Peterson project is back on track, she reports while I'm setting up my home office in what used to be a spare bedroom. Turns out clients don't actually care about your personal drama as long as you deliver good work on time and under budget. Who would have thought? Apparently, being a decent architect matters more than having a trophy wife and a house that looks like it belongs in Architectural Digest. The clients who stuck with me during the legal circus are the kind of people who value competence over appearances, and working with them feels like remembering why I got into this business in the first place. Charlotte Keats becomes an unlikely friend in all this mess. She hires me to design her new law office, which is ironic considering her husband tried to steal my daughter and flee to the Caribbean. But Charlotte's the kind of woman who doesn't let personal drama interfere with good business, and I respect that about her. I want something that says successful but not pretentious, she tells me during our initial consultation. Think competent attorney rather than robber baron. Her new office ends up being one of my best designs. Clean lines, natural light, and the kind of understated elegance that actually impresses people instead of making them feel like they're being intimidated. Charlotte loves it, and more importantly, she starts referring other clients to me. Turns out that when rich people get divorced, they need architects to design their post-scandal homes, and apparently, I'm becoming the go-to guy for life rebuilding projects. The legal swamp finally starts to clear up, mostly thanks to Charlotte coaching me through the Byzantine world of family court. She's got connections that make things happen, and more importantly, she's got the kind of ruthless intelligence that cuts through bureaucratic bullshit like a laser through tissue paper. The key is documentation. She explains over coffee at a diner that serves breakfast all day and doesn't judge you for eating pancakes at 3 in the afternoon. Keep records of everything. Every conversation with Sophie, every school event you attend, every doctor's appointment. Clara's going to try to paint you as an absent father when she gets out, so you need proof that you're not. Good advice, considering Clara's legal team is already laying the groundwork for a custody challenge when she's released. Apparently, 5 years in federal prison doesn't automatically disqualify you from seeking custody of your child, which seems like a flaw in the system if you ask me. But here's the thing. I'm not the same guy who got blindsided at that company gala 2 years ago. That Marcus was naive enough to think that love and loyalty mattered more than money and social climbing. This Marcus has been through the fire and came out stronger, smarter, and a hell of a lot less trusting of people who wear designer clothes and talk about networking opportunities. Life settles into a rhythm that's actually sustainable. Sophie goes to a public school where the teachers know her name and care about her progress instead of treating her like a networking opportunity. I work from home most days, which means I'm there when she gets off the bus and we can eat dinner together like a normal family. One evening, we're in the kitchen making spaghetti. Nothing fancy, just the kind of meal that fills you up and doesn't require a culinary degree to prepare. When Sophie looks up at me with those serious eyes that kids get when they're thinking deep thoughts. Dad, are you happy? She asks, twirling pasta around her fork like she's defusing a bomb. I look around our small kitchen with its generic appliances and bargain brand everything, and I smell the sauce we cooked together from a jar that cost $3 at the grocery store. There's homework spread across the counter, Sophie's art projects taped to the refrigerator, and absolutely zero designer anything in sight. Yeah, sweetheart, I tell her, and for the first time in years, I actually mean it. Finally, because here's what I've learned. Happiness isn't about having the biggest house or the most expensive furniture or a wife who looks good at corporate events. It's about coming home to people who are actually glad to see you, eating meals with someone who laughs at your stupid jokes, and building a life that's based on something more solid than social media appearances and networking opportunities. Clara can keep her emerald dresses and her prison jumpsuit. I'll take pancake breakfasts and homework help any day of the week. 2 years after the whole Clara and Adrian circus went to federal prison, I'm sitting on my front porch with a beer that cost less than $5, watching the Minneapolis skyline turn gold in the evening sun. It's one of those perfect autumn nights when the air is crisp enough to remind you that winter's coming, but warm enough that you don't want to go inside just yet. The porch isn't much to look at, just some basic wooden furniture I picked up at a garage sale and painted myself. But it's got something the old house never had: peace. No pretentious neighbors gossiping about property values. No landscaping that requires a PhD in horticulture to maintain. Just a simple front porch where a guy can drink a beer and watch the world go by without worrying about maintaining his image. Sophie's inside doing homework at the kitchen table, probably procrastinating on her math assignment by doodling in the margins. She's 10 now, which means she's developed opinions about everything and isn't shy about sharing them. Last week she informed me that my cooking was adequate but uninspired, which is apparently what passes for a compliment from a fourth grader who's been watching too much Food Network. Somewhere out there in the vastness of Lake Minnetonka lies my old wedding ring, the white gold band that used to symbolize eternal love and now serves as expensive fish habitat. I threw it in the water about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, partly because it felt symbolic and partly because Sophie dared me to. Turns out 10-year-olds have a pretty good understanding of dramatic gestures. Clara's sitting in federal prison somewhere, probably complaining about the thread count of her orange jumpsuit and wondering why her fellow inmates don't appreciate her insights on sustainable architecture. She's got 3 more years to go, assuming she behaves herself, which is a pretty big assumption considering her track record with following rules. I get letters from her occasionally, carefully worded attempts at reconciliation that read like they were written by a committee of lawyers and therapists. She's found herself in prison, apparently, and wants to rebuild our family when she gets out. The letters go straight into the trash, usually without Sophie even knowing they arrived. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Adrian got released early for good behavior, which apparently means he figured out how to keep his mouth shut and his head down in federal prison. Word through the grapevine is that he's working at a car dealership in Phoenix, selling used Hondas to people who probably make more in a year than he used to spend on suits. Charlotte divorced him while he was inside and kept everything that wasn't nailed down, which seems like poetic justice if you ask me. Evelyn Mercer, my former mother-in-law and professional harridan, moved to Florida where she can spend her golden years complaining about the weather and writing bitter letters to newspaper editors about the decline of modern society. She still sends Sophie birthday cards with passive-aggressive messages about how your father stole you from your mother, but Sophie's old enough now to understand that Grandma Evelyn is basically a professional victim who blames everyone else for her daughter's mistakes. My business is doing better than it ever did when I was married to Clara and trying to maintain our ridiculous lifestyle. Turns out that when you're not spending half your income on designer furniture and charity galas, you can actually save money and invest in growing your company. I've got 3 full-time employees now, including Jonas, who decided that working for me beats dealing with corporate electrician jobs where everyone treats him like the help. You know what the best part about working for you is? Jonas asked me last week while we were reviewing blueprints for a new community center project. Nobody here gives a shit about networking or climbing ladders. We just build stuff and go home. That's exactly right. We build stuff, good stuff that people actually need, and we go home to lives that don't require constant performance and strategic positioning. Revolutionary concept, I know. Charlotte and I have settled into what I guess you'd call a friendship based on mutual respect and shared trauma. She's built her law practice into something that would make corporate America nervous, specializing in cases where regular people get screwed over by rich people who think money makes them untouchable. We have dinner occasionally, usually at places that serve actual food instead of tiny portions arranged like modern art. You know, she said during our last dinner, I think Adrian actually did us both a favor. Getting rid of people who think loyalty is negotiable is like getting rid of a cancer. Painful, but ultimately life-saving. She's got a point. Looking back, Clara and Adrian were like a cancer that was slowly eating away at everything good in our lives. Getting rid of them hurt like hell at the time, but now that the healing's done, everything feels stronger and more real. The best part of my new life is that it actually belongs to me. I don't have to pretend to care about wine tastings or charity events where rich people pat themselves on the back for writing checks. I don't have to smile at colleagues who think backstabbing is a legitimate business strategy. I don't have to come home to someone who sees me as a stepping stone to something better. Instead, I get to come home to Sophie, who thinks I'm pretty great even when I burn dinner or forget to wash her soccer uniform. I get to work on projects that matter to people who aren't trying to impress anyone. I get to be friends with people who like me for who I am instead of what I can do for their social climbing. My phone buzzes with a text from Jonas. Drinks tomorrow? I'm buying. I type back. You always say that. But yes. Because that's another thing about my new life. The people in it actually mean what they say. Revolutionary concept in a world full of Claras and Adrians. The funny thing about betrayal is that it burns your old life down completely, leaving nothing but ashes and bitter memories. But here's what nobody tells you about ashes. They make excellent fertilizer for whatever you decide to grow next. Clara and Adrian thought they were destroying me when they plotted their little escape to paradise. Instead, they cleared away all the dead wood and artificial bullshit that was keeping me from building something real, something solid, something that belongs to me instead of some image I was trying to maintain for people whose opinions don't actually matter. So here I sit on my $5 porch furniture, drinking my $3 beer, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that don't cost anything at all. Tomorrow I'll wake up in a house that's actually a home, make breakfast with my daughter who actually wants to spend time with me, and go to work building things that matter. And this time, I'm building it all beam by beam, solid, honest, and completely mine.